Hot Springs Village Inside Out is a closer look at the greatness of Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, and the surrounding areas. People, places, experiences. Hot Springs Village is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Join me, Randy Cantrell, and my co-host, Dennis Simpson, as we engage in weekly conversations to explore Hot Springs Village Inside Out. Today's show is brought to you by Central Arkansas's favorite radio station, KVRE. Find them on the dial at 92.9 FM. Stream them live at kvre.com. RE/MAX of Hot Springs Village is the largest real estate office with over 30 full-time agents and support staff. They're also an award-winning RE/MAX office. Visit them to learn more about this beautiful place to figure out your real estate needs. Call them today at 1-800-364-9007 or find them online at explorerhsv.com. They are RE/MAX of Hot Springs Village at 1-800-364-9007 or online at explorerhsv.com.
This is what everyone has been waiting for, Randy. I know these sage words are what everybody's been waiting for. Advice from two old guys, right?
Well, where's the other old guy? Oh, we have met the enemy and he is us.
We have met the enemy and he is us.
Yeah.
I need an old guy who only gets old cartoon references that only old people know. That's what I need right there, right?
Well, you got one. Here I am.
We have so many great listeners and watchers, and we sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. And that's not an exaggeration in any way. I do want to say that we hear a lot of the same questions. And Randy and I are not experts in virtually anything except talking. Maybe that's what we're good at. But Randy, I'm just thinking back on things that we can help good advice on.
Mm-hmm.
I like nice watches. You made a comment about one of my nice watches one time. Yeah. I paid 400 pesos, which is about $21 for a really great looking watch. And got that in
to leave
Mexico.
that second part out. You're just supposed to say 400 pesos and make people go, man, really?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, you didn't interrupt me. You're making my point. You're making my point. How many miles do you have on your car, Randy?
72,000.
Okay. You have a 2008 Mercedes convertible with a big roaring V8 that is gorgeous, runs like a spotted ape, and has 155,000 on it.
Well, mine is also a 2008.
Yeah. Yeah. And you owe how much?
Mine just goes between here and Hot Springs Village, though. It's almost true, by the way.
It's virtually true.
Yeah, it's almost true.
Well, and I used to drive.
My wife has a 2007 Honda Accord that's got 100,000 miles on it.
And you owe how much on those, Randy?
Zero.
Yeah. And Diane and I think. And
by the way, we never owed anything on them. We went in, we wrote checks, we took them home, and
how can you possibly do that, Randy?
Because we don't like debt.
The good book says, if I'm not mistaken, in the Old Testament, I believe it says, "Owe no man no thing but to love him." Am I mistaken?
No, you're right. Now, the context doesn't mean that you can't take on a mortgage or anything, but the context does mean pay what you owe.
Pay what you owe. To the taxes, to whatever.
And the implication is, and there's plenty of Bible evidence to show, don't spend money you don't have. Don't live beyond your means. It is absolutely a biblical concept, counting the cost and all that.
Counting the cost, exactly. And the point I'm bringing up is, and us as older guys,
have we gotten to the wisdom part yet?
Huh?
Have we gotten to the wisdom part yet?
I'm trying.
Or we just hung up on the old part?
Bear with me. Go ahead. The wisdom is, don't use a credit card when you don't have to. Pay cash whenever you possibly can. You don't have to have the newest car. You don't have to. Yeah, but here, I'll give you a stat. I used to listen to Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers on NPR all the time. Yeah. Funny guys, always cracking great jokes.
Yep.
One of them said one time that most cars are traded for less than $500 in repairs. Can you imagine trading cars, Randy, and not losing $500 at the dealership? I can't imagine not losing $2,000 at the dealership.
No, the good news is I know somebody right now who's got an old 16, 17-year-old Toyota. Transmission's out. but because of the current state of the economy, it's worth $3,000. I'm like, what kind of a world are we living? What kind of a world are we living in, man? You know, where you can sell a used car for more than you paid for it.
Well, you know, we had
have to run.
We had Shane Lester on the show the other day, who's a financial consultant and does mortgages. And he was saying he sold his 2019 for more than the new 2022 cost him.
Yeah.
Who doesn't take that kind of deal?
Well, he did.
That kind of deal.
He did. Proves that he's smart and he ain't old.
Our point is, don't spend what you don't have. And you probably don't need what you even think you need. I mean, there's a lot of other options.
Well, but don't you think there are so many people that I mean, so many of us are tempted to live our lives because of the appearance and how other people may see us. And you and I are both long enough in the tooth now to know that until they're writing checks for the things that you're buying, you shouldn't care what they think. So if people want to judge Dennis because he's driving, you know, this car that is 10 years plus old, or me driving one 10 plus years old, okay, well, then buy me a new one.
Yeah, I'd rather have the money in the bank. I'd rather have the money in the bank. And if I sell something I really, really wanted, which I don't very often. Yeah. And I find it, and I want to come back to that deal with Shane again. You remember he said his wife was coming out of one of the flea markets or something, and she was like, it was so much more fun when we were broke. We had to analyze our payments more closely and all that. Yeah. Advice number one from old guys: don't go in debt if you don't absolutely have to. Yes, you have to have a home. We got that. We talk about that all the time. But you don't have to have a brand new car. Yeah, and one of the things in an upcoming episode we have mortgage people from Arvest, and one of the very first things they say is, whatever you do, as soon as you get signed in on your loan, do not go buy a new car. Do not go change your numbers. Do not go make a new purchase. Do not any of that. You got to lock that in place.
But that'll make me happy, Dennis. If I buy that,
I'm going to quote Shane T. Lester, who said, and my wife, who said, that was a great saying, if it's going to take this to make you happy, what's the next thing you're going to have to buy to make you happy? Advice from old guys. Randy, I'm going to throw it at you. What's a piece of advice you'd give younger people?
You know, I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. Yeah. And if you don't know who he is, Google him. But Jordan Peterson is a really brilliant guy. And he does put forth a premise that I think, you know, questions whether happiness should be the goal, because it's so fleeting.
Elusive.
And I think he's absolutely right. You know, but so many people are pursuing happiness. And I don't know. I've had too many things happen to me in life that have shown me the colossal selfishness of happiness. Right. So, I mean, if you're going to pursue somebody's happiness, we're both happily married guys, madly in love with our wives. It's just better for me to pursue her happiness. I mean, that's a quicker path for me. It just is. And I know it sounds noble and altruistic and all that, and I don't mean it that way. I mean it quite in a self-serving way. Yeah. No, it just is. It's infinitely more rewarding. I don't know how much wisdom there is in that, but
there's a ton of wisdom in that. One of the greatest quotes from Zig Ziglar. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, go ahead.
One of the greatest quotes from Zig Ziglar is, selfishness is the one disease that makes everybody around you sick except for the person that has it.
Yeah.
And if you want to be miserable, if you want to be genuinely miserable, be selfish. It's easy. And by the way, we don't touch on this kind of stuff many times, but Randy, and I'm just going to shoot across the bow of a million things that nobody's asked our opinion about. I don't know of an addiction of any sort: gambling, sex, drugs, pick it, whatever. Any addiction that you want to pick involves selfishness. It involves making yourself the center of the known universe, and everybody else is subservient to you. They're going to put up with your drinking. They're going to put up with your gambling. They're going to put up with your immoral activities, whatever. Selfishness is the center of all those addictions. Am I close?
In my experience, that's true.
So living for somebody else, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, listen, you and I have talked enough about leadership in particular because I spend so much of my time in that arena, and the progression of leadership that I crafted in my 20s. I'm not saying it's perfect. I haven't been able to improve on it because I'm probably limited in brain power. Don't know why I crafted it, but I did. Humility, curiosity, knowledge, understanding, compassion.
Say it again, please. Say it again.
Humility, curiosity. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, I got no questions. I got all the answers. So there goes curiosity. And if I don't have curiosity, then knowledge. Well, whatever I know better be enough because I ain't going to know much more. And if I don't know, I can't understand. And we're living in a society where we're not interested in understanding. We're just interested in hollering at each other and shouting at each other and arguing with each other and telling each other, well, you're an idiot because you don't agree with me. But, if we understood each other, we might feel differently. I made a comment to a client the other day. I remember being in a couple of business meetings with a fella, and it just, he was just really off-putting. I didn't like the guy at all. And I thought, I don't know this guy. So I went up and had a private conversation with him. And in that conversation, he divulged that he was going through something personally, and he told me what it was, and it was pretty traumatic. And he said, and I'm not likely handling it very well. Well, I asked my client, I said, do you think that changed anything at all for me? And she said, oh yeah, of course. I said, yeah, of course. I mean, now I understand this guy, and I understand that the guy that I'm seeing in this meeting may not quite be completely who he is, right? There's more to him than that. So that's understanding. At the top is compassion. Compassion, simple definition, is a focus on others. I happen to define leadership as a focus on others and doing for others what they can't do for themselves. That has nothing to do with a title. It has nothing to do with being a boss. So let's just take our marriages, our relationships. Let's take you and me. I mean, we're both capable of exercising some leadership. We're both capable of having a focus on the other guy and thinking, what can I do for Dennis? And I don't want to think this way, but I want you to think this way. What can I do for Randy that he can't do for himself? And there's plenty, by the way, because I'm this social butterfly who is a natural introvert. I don't look like it, but it drains me. I can be very engaging. Dennis loves it and thrives on it. Dennis loves to shoot from the hip, and he loves to just have a bunch of irons in the fire. I don't, but I've got great respect for the way that you roll. And we're kind of a yin and a yang thing. But in our marriages, I think it's the same thing. I think, for you to serve your wife, for me to serve my wife and do for them things that maybe they can't do for themselves, or maybe things that we could do better for them, and to have a focus on them. The older I get, the more I know how rewarding that is. I wish I had known that when I was 40.
Well,
wait a minute. I'm not 40 anymore, by the way. I'm way older.
A couple of years ago. One of our number one fans is Stephen, and great guy. We talk about sports racing a lot, and this is the crazy thing that you'll hear in racing. Slow down to go faster.
Yep.
And you've heard the term, I know you have, 100 times, and it sounds so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But some of that, focus on others to make yourself happier. Oh, whatever. Come on. How could I? Yeah, it works. Huh, Randy?
It does. My grandmother had a sign in her kitchen said, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get. So a lot of stuff's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah,
so there's that.
Yeah.
There's that. It's why my favorite quote is still, everything is hard until it's easy.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's learning to ride a bike or, I got little grandsons that are playing, I got a grandson, Roy, Road Rash Roy, he's 6 and he's playing baseball, I mean, they're trying to figure it out. By the way, hitting of course, every home run's in the park.
Yeah, oh, sure.
And I don't mean just because of errors, which there are plenty of errors, but yeah, the kid's a hitter, man. Kid's a hitter.
Is he really?
Yeah, I'm off the topic, but yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, well, this is
I'm gonna have to share. I'm gonna have to share some video with the audience of.
Yes, you do. Well, this is
Roy,
the kid.
Roy and my son. You know, his father hollering, "Run, keep running!" Because Ryan coaches third base. My son, so.
Does he ever see Roy?
His name isn't Roy. His name is Kaysen, but I call him Road Rash Roy because he's always got a boo-boo or something because he's always, he's just rough and tumble and he climbs everything. But he comes around in third, and Ryan's just yelling, run. It's
I always thought Road Rash Roy is one of my favorite stories that you tell simply because I can always, in my mind, I can see I can see Child Protective Services going, now explain that blues again, because he's sure.
Well, and if the audience hasn't seen the picture, I need to show it. He's got a hockey helmet that's got no face cage on it. It's painted blue. He's got it on his head. He's barefooted. He's covered in mud head to toe, and both arms are in the air. It's like this victory pose, like a gymnast has just made a perfect 10-point landing or something. Yeah. It's just funny. That'll give you some. You live that long, you'll get some wisdom.
But here's what I'm hearing though. You get a whole lot of joy from seeing what happens with him.
Oh yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, but you can't. There's nothing you can purchase. There's nothing you can purchase. You
don't have enough money.
There's not a check you could get. There's not enough money that could be wired into your account. To say, yeah, I'll sell that. I'll sell my experiences with Roy. I'll sell my experiences for something. That's worth a brand new car, surely. No, it's not. It's not. So there's that.
Well, let me go back to one thing. Just against the act of the counterintuitive. You know what a car can cost you, or a new car can cost you? It can cost you your happiness.
Oh, of course.
You can lay awake at night and sweat those payments. You can, and I know, we're joking about watches and we talk about different units that Diane and I have been able to buy here. And I'll tell you right now, if we've never made this clear before, this is the dear Lord's blessings above. This was, we work hard. It shouldn't have worked this way. And not because we're favored, not, this is silly. We've worked hard and we've got these other properties that we think are dynamite. But my Lord, if you don't see the sprinklings of blessings, you're not paying attention. You're really not.
Well, and all that glitters ain't gold, I mean, we can focus, and you and I do, because we're both kind of optimist. Well, no, we're not kind of, we are optimist, but there's plenty of struggle and heartache along the way. You and I we've cried in front of this audience before, and we will do it again. It's just life. It's just life, and it's how we learn. It strengthens us if we endure it or overcome it. If we cave in and give into it, no, not so much. It doesn't strengthen us that much. But yeah, there's plenty to be. Gratitude is the way forward. There's another pearl of wisdom. Gratitude is the way forward.
I'm actually just thinking that through. And what I was going to say about these other units that we have, I can tell you about the lost sleep I had every night. Yeah. I can tell you right before we purchased each one of them, are we going to be able to do that? How can I do that? What if I had to move this from here, or is this, am I going to walk to the bank and go, we just don't have it?
Yeah, but now you're just printing money and you're just sitting back on Easy Street because it's falling in our lap. There's no work at all to it.
No, I don't work at all. It's just those. Somebody asked me the other day how many jobs I had, and I was like, hang on. Thought I was going to have to take my shoes off, Randy. Anyway, that said, other pearls of wisdom, anything just come to you? I've got a couple more I'm just kind of pondering.
Oh, go ahead.
And this is just me. I don't think that we've ever discussed this before, Randy, but you know what? I think, whereas possible, to live peaceably with your neighbor. And I mean that on social media. I mean, physically your next door neighbor. I mean, your international neighbor. I mean,
well, now come on, now you're putting a cramp in a lot of people's, hobbies,
I just got unhappy. That made me some people unhappy.
Now you're going to put a cramp in my spare time.
Yeah. I agree.
I
can't imagine living in a world don't think I'm going to be a real jerk on social media.
Yeah, but
today.
again, I mean, a lot of this is faith-based for sure, but it's that golden rule stuff, and that's out the window. People, they used to talk about alcohol being liquid courage. Well, now there's just courage behind the keyboard.
And actually, in one of our,
but I had a friend who was a programmer years ago who had a phrase, IBK, idiot behind keyboard. And I kind of like his better.
I love the mechanic who used to say there was a loose nut behind the wheel, and people go,
yeah,
really, where? And right in the seat, right there, right in the
exactly.
seat.
Tag, you're it.
I got one more.
Let's hear it.
Humor.
Yeah,
humor. I don't know. I have spent too much time in funerals lately, and with Diane's family and with some with my own family. And Diane had made note, she won't go to a funeral without me. I was like, why? And she said,
because you're always cracking jokes, or?
Well, but I use humor to make people more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And humor, let's face it, laughter is the release of fear. I don't care how you phrase it. Okay. It's the release of fear. It's the I'm easy with you. I can laugh about this, or nervous laugh, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it is. And I realize that so many people, in particular in funeral settings and other social settings, they're just basically uncomfortable, not because they don't like or they didn't want to be here or whatever. They're either uncomfortable with the topic of death, which you probably want to get around, or they're just generally uncomfortable. And I remember back to that whole selfishness thing and whatever. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes that there are people who are truly self-conscious, and I think there are other people who are obsessed with not making a fool of themselves or ever looking silly or ever whatever. If you think you're never going to look foolish, might as well become a hermit and stay at home. You're going to look like a goob some days. Embrace it, like I do.
Yeah, well, thankfully we do that pretty well. I'd give us high marks for doing that. That's for sure. No, I agree. But don't you think some of that is just taking ourselves or taking, life too seriously? But then again, I mean, boy, stuff seems to keep cycling back the more you think about it, for me at least, to selfishness. If you think you're the center of the universe and you think nobody understands what I'm going, plenty of people understand what you're going through. Plenty of people have been where you are. Plenty of people have gone. I mean, I think of the various things that I've gone through. I've told you before about these ladies that I introduced myself to that run and operate parents of murdered children up in Ohio.
Yeah.
And you're like, you think, well, nobody understands my pain. But you walk in that room, if you happen to be the parent of a murdered child, and they happen to transcend that, they go beyond that. They go to family and friends of murdered children. But yeah, the minute you walk in that room, you don't even have to introduce yourself, right? I mean, everybody can relate. And I think there's power in that, which is why I kind of hate. No, I don't kind of, I do hate the fragmentation. I do hate the divisiveness. I do hate the planting your flag and throwing rocks at other people. I do hate the whole woke thing. I do hate, I just hate all of that, because for me, it's just colossal not understanding.
Well, it's a lack of even of empathy or apathy. I mean, you don't even want to understand,
Yeah. And it's just, yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it's just so much self-centeredness, and, every group has some vested interest. I get it, but I don't get it. I mean, I don't get it to the degree that, it's so pervasive. So many axes to grind. And I don't know, make your wildest dreams come true in your selfishness. And we see where that leads. More selfishness, more disappointment, more angst, more bitterness, more resentment, more envy, more jealousy, more of all the things that are bad. that all of us have to battle. We all have to battle it. The problem is some of us we're not fighting very hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should fight. I think we should fight harder because we are the enemy.
Yeah.
There's no question.
It's us. Yeah. I remember one of my great quotes from Jim Rohn, one of the motivational speakers that you and I both listened to 30 and 40 years ago, who was a farm boy from Idaho, as he would remind you. And he said, people would come to him and say, well, all your plans, all your motivational stuff and all this positive stuff, that sounds good, but you don't know what I've been through. He said, yeah, I do. Yeah. We've all had heartache. If you want to compare heartaches, I can compare heartaches. Heartaches are not reserved for heartaches are not reserved for a chosen few. And I remember hearing those words, and you might as well have hit me with a sledgehammer. Heartaches are not reserved for a chosen few. We've all got heartaches.
Yeah.
They vary in size. Some of them vary in tragedy. Oh, that's worse than other. Well, okay. But as you've said before, you have two choices. You can wallow in it, or you can get over it.
And there's another pearl of wisdom. It's not a contest. These people that want to keep score. My pain's deeper than your pain. Well, okay, congratulations, you win. I mean, what do you say to?
Here's your flag. Here's your flag.
Yeah. What do you say to that? It's like, it's not a contest. We're kind of all in this together, and none of us are going to get out of this thing alive anyway.
We're all in it together unless you're selfish. And then we're not all in it together because you got to be special. You got to be more hurt than everybody else. You got to be more, your hurt doesn't compare. I can't possibly understand your hurt, Randy. Right.
Well, let me wax a little bit faith-based. And if you don't like it, build a bridge and get over it. The good news of the gospel is that we can all be redeemed. The truth of the gospel is we all need redemption. But some people think that the good news of the gospel is I'm going to heaven and you're not.
I got the winning ticket.
And it's like, it's just not a competition. There's enough room for all of us. I think of somebody gave a lesson at church some months ago, a younger guy, and he made a point that I've grown up knowing, and you do too. But the early Jews who rejected the Lord at first, and those who became Christians absolutely hated the fact that the Gentiles, you can't let the Gentiles in on our party.
Are you kidding?
Why are you
this program?
Yeah. Why are you letting them in as though, and this is what fascinates me about selfishness, which is the point.
Yeah.
It cost them nothing. The Jews gave up nothing.
Nothing came out of their pocket.
No, it didn't cost them anything. But I do think about that quite seriously. I think about that with Hot Springs Village. And I think about, because I'm a huge fan of musicians and bands.
Yeah.
And I can stumble onto a band. There's a little band that came out of Michigan that I fell in love with years ago called Midnight Pilot. They haven't broken through. They're not big.
Yeah.
I'm in touch with these guys. I started exposing my audience of my podcast, Leaning Toward Wisdom. I'll give it a shout out, leaningtowardwisdom.com, since the topic here is wisdom.
Fantastic podcast.
I reached out to these guys, but I know that there probably are some fans of that band that really don't want them to break through.
You can't know our secret.
Right.
It's our little special secret.
Yeah. It's like it's this cult, even though it won't cost them anything, but there is something to that in our human psychology that we're like, it's our little secret. And I do sense that. I sense that I don't sense that widespread, by the way.
No, it's occasional. Yeah.
But I do sense that among some inside the village that, let it be our little secret. The negative to me is, well, not the negative, but the truth of it to me is Okay. And that would negatively impact you how? So prior to 2018, Randy and Rhonda Cantrell don't know one thing about this place. We've never been to this place. So now that we know it, well, we've got this podcast going. So there's that.
Yeah.
But how have we negatively, what have we taken from anybody in the village because we now know about it?
Have you watered down other people's happiness?
Well, I think about Mike Varney and the huge investment that he and his wife, Jolene, made in the village in purchasing the number of homes over there because he came over there as a golfer and he fell in love with it. And I'm thinking, okay, Mike is taking away from whom? What is he taking away? I mean, the guy's bringing so much money into the village, through his short-term rental stuff. And through his own, he's over there every week.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, again, selfishness seems to be the theme.
Well, or the thought that someone else's success cost you. I think that's that's a huge point. We need that's even different than selfishness. I've had many friends who told me that they would invest in the stock market, but the only way you win is when other people lose. Really?
No, that's gambling. That's what happens when you're a monkey at a slot machine, as you put it the other day. Yeah.
Hitting the button.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah. But you and I both know that there are people, sadly, who their lives are made better because of your pain. Their situation looks better because yours doesn't. And the more grim that yours looks, the better they feel about themselves.
As Jim Rohn said in another moment, he said, there's two ways to having the tallest building in town. You can build the tallest building in town, or you can tear down all the other buildings in town. And when you go to tear down that building, somebody's going to say, hey, that Simpson guy, he's a terror downer. And you know what? Next time they're going to say, hey, we see him coming. He's going to try and tear stuff down because that's how he does. So if you want to live your life and be known as a tearing down in person, I wouldn't recommend it. Try and build the highest.
No, but you could at least, hey, you can at least get known. So there's that, I mean, we know who you are. All the rest of us know who you are too. So the good news is I don't find that in Hot Springs Village. I don't find that in Bedford, Texas. I didn't find that in Edmond, Oklahoma when I lived there. I didn't find that in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I haven't found that anywhere I have lived. I have not found that to be the pervasive way that people live. And aren't we thankful for that?
We are. And I think I got one I want to end up on. And it's not like we even started with a list, but I've got another one of what not to be.
Yep.
Don't be petty. Don't be petty. It will cost you more than you can fathom. Well, they did this to me 3 years ago, Randy. So, I'm waiting for my revenge. I've seen a lot of people who want to say, karma is a terrible thing. And that's code for, I can't wait for them to get theirs. Really? You think your life is going to be improved when you see someone else, right? More than once, I have told people that I've counseled with, when I get this revenge, I said, I don't know if you know this, but it doesn't feel as good as you think it's gonna. It's a very empty, hollow feeling. Well, I got mine. I got my revenge in on them. Randy?
Well, okay. Now what? It's like a dog chasing a car. Okay, you bark at the car and the car stops and now you caught it. Now what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the dog's just going to look at you like, I don't know what to do now.
Game's over.
But you and I both know that some people, they don't even recognize. We look at it and it's blindingly obvious to us that it's petty, but it's not petty to them. I've got this, I don't have it handy, but you've seen it, this drawing, and you look at the drawing and do you see a young woman or an old woman?
Right.
Right. And so you're going to see, and people naturally see one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, you're like, okay, do you see the young woman? And if they see the old woman, they kind of struggle to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, here's her nose, here's her chin. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, the minute you see it, you can't not see it.
Right.
Because you see it. But I think that's true for all of us. You know, I mean, understanding is the clear comprehension of what is happening, what has happened. Okay, well, but people that are petty, I don't think it's petty. It's important to me. This is a big deal to me. You know, don't minimize how I feel. Okay, you know, but make sure you're seeing it clearly. And again, not to cycle back around to selfishness, but to cycle back around to selfishness. Guess what helps us see more clearly? Somebody else who can. So I'm sitting here with the client saying, do you see, here's her nose, here's her chin. Okay. Well, guess what that does? That accelerates the understanding. And now there's comprehension. Well, it changes everything. It changes everything. I mean, how many of us have met somebody? I gave one little simple illustration earlier, but you know, you met somebody in the first impression and you're like, well, I had them pegged all wrong. I mean, we've all done it. We've all misjudged people.
Sure. A million times.
You know,
yeah.
And so to your petty point, I mean, I could just make that the gospel. You know, I'm sure I've left a poor impression on any number of occasions. You know,
I literally lay awake at night sometime and think, oh, I remember. Oh boy, that was yeah, I wouldn't do that again. Boy, who did that? What crazy man did that? What
you know, so the question, is that a fair depiction? Is that, did somebody see the whole you
in a snapshot?
No, you know,
no.
I mean, man, we sometimes record and I'm not having a great day. We sometimes record and you're not having a great day. Hopefully we hide it, you know, somewhat.
Life happens back behind us.
Well, but we don't always hide it. I mean, true confession, you know. So when you see a show and I'm really quiet, it could be because that's how it rolls. It could be because I don't have a clue what to ask, you know. I mean, Dennis, he could have an upset stomach or something going on. You know, meanwhile, you just keep moving. You know, you just keep moving.
At the end of one episode, I'll tell our audience, at the end of one episode, I turned to Randy and said, I'm glad I didn't pass out then, because I was thinking I wasn't going to make it from that scene to that scene. And yeah, but there we were. Well, I got one follow-up. And to me, I think this is one of the most important. We've covered some other critical things, but from advice from old guys. Just go ahead and forgive them. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the peace. I'm going to fill you in on a blank. If you're listening to me, Neil, and we're still here, it's my turn on the soapbox, my turn on the pulpit. The people you are so upset with did not get up this morning and going, boy, I sure hope I still piss Dennis off today. Boy, I tell you what, I'm going to keep grinding him till he's They don't give a thought to you. They do. Their mind does not even cross. You're a million miles away from their thoughts or concerns or anything. And here you are making stomach acid over the fact that they need to come to you and ask for forgiveness. Remember that whole, you know, getting even and making it right thing? I got news for you. When they come to you and ask for forgiveness, it doesn't feel like you think it will either. It's not as rewarding as you might think.
Yeah. And people say, well, how? How do you forgive? What's your answer?
How do I say how to forgive? You know, the forgive and forget thing, Diane has probably one of the shortest forgiveness cycles I've ever seen in my life. It's one of her greatest assets, especially to live with me. But I will tell you, we've already talked on it. We've already hit it. If you think that you're so important that people have to ask you for forgiveness, if you think that you're at an elevated place where you're so important that they have to ask your forgiveness because they did you wrong and they know that's the rule, Randy, they can't break the rule. They can't be mean to you. You're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong perspective. You're in the wrong perspective.
I tell people, you know, the only advice I know to give in that regard is to just make up your mind. There is a survey. I need to find a link, and you can take it free. It's called the VIA survey, VIA. It's a character strength assessment. Now, character strengths are different than like strength finders.
Sure.
Character traits are things like forgiveness.
Right.
And I happen to be perhaps like your wife. Every time I've taken this thing, which is half a dozen times, forgiveness is number one.
Really?
Yep. And if you study that survey and that assessment, what you find is that your strength becomes your weakness.
You forgive too easily?
Well, it's your Achilles heel. No, I can forgive other people super easy. But then I can look in the mirror and it's really hard.
Can't forgive Randy.
No, really, really, really hard. But I tell people the only thing I know to do is just make up your mind. Just make up your mind. But here's the problem. We don't want to do that. And I'm like, if you remind yourself of the times that you needed some grace and some compassion.
Oh, boy. And
that shouldn't be too tough for any of us if we're honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to forgive them. I don't want to forgive them because, well, they don't deserve it. I'm like, well, that's the whole definition of grace. You've just defined grace. It's giving people some consideration that are undeserving of it.
That don't deserve it in the first place.
So you give it to them. You give it to them anyway. Why not? Admittedly, come on, all of this stuff is not easy to do. And I guess that's why it's two old guys, talking about it, because you got to live some life. You got to be knocked down and dragged out and jerked through a knothole backwards, as the old timer said, to figure some of this stuff out. And hopefully, I don't know about you, but I had a bunch of old men in my life. I had a whole bunch of old men. I had a bunch of old women in my life too, that taught me some of that stuff. And now I'm at a point where, like Roy, I kind of want to pass some of that stuff on,
before he kills himself.
Yeah, because Roy needs a lot of wisdom. He needs a bath. He needs a bath and a lot of wisdom.
So my nephew told me one time he's got two adorable little boys, and they're great kids, incredibly savvy, sharp kids. And one of them turned one time and they said, when I grow up, I want to be smart like Uncle Dennis. I was like, oh. I'll tell you what, why don't you try to be wiser than Uncle Dennis?
Yeah.
This wisdom, this intelligence thing, it ain't what it's cracked up to be. A little
Right.
wisdom will go a lot further, my friend, a lot further.
Yeah. Set the bar a tad higher. Why don't you? Yeah. Oh, listen, I feel the same way. I tell people that podcast lean toward it. Listen, we're leaning toward it. I don't claim to have captured it. We're just we're trying to lean toward our wisdom and further away from our own foolishness. And that's a tall order.
It can be. Well, I don't have any more wisdom for the day. I'll recap and humility, not being selfish, forgiveness. What did we miss? We missed something else.
Yeah, focus on others,
Stay out of debt. Out of debt.
Yeah. Don't spend money you don't have.
Trying to impress people that really don't care about you.
No. People that, as you pointed out, people that aren't even thinking about you.
No, they don't wake up and go, oh man, today I might forgive Dennis. They're not thinking about that.
No, and if people are so petty, to use your point, if people are so petty that they're going to judge me based on the car that I drive.
Yeah.
Well, okay, then judge away.
Go with it.
Judge away.
Well, for Hot Springs Village Inside Out and two old guys, hopefully sharing some wisdom. I'm Dennis Simpson. He is.
I don't know who I am. I'm
Randy Cantrell. And we are out of here. We will see.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that by visiting our website, hsvinsideout.com, and tell a friend.